Calling to order the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee at 5:30 p.m. Can we start with a roll call?
Chair Rob Weltman. Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele. Tova Callender. Everett Dowling. Vernon Kalanikau. Randall Leach. Mike Moran. Wayne Ishiki. Kiyoki Falzer. Jennifer Sullivan. Let the record show that Brian Ward and Cody Nemitz are not currently present, and Lehu Anani has requested to be excused due to a conflict.
I think Brian said he was going to be away, right? Is that right? Do people remember that Brian said he was going to be away? Okay. Okay, so that's an excuse, but Cody is unexplained at this point. Thank you. Velina mai nā lalo ke komike o laloa o kai o ulu no ka papa o lala no Maui hama. A velina mai no I kapo e o ke ena o ke o lala o ke kalana o Maui. A me ka leho leho o Maui ne. E ho paaka ko I ke ia hiahi I ka ho ma ana ina I kama kule kele a hana a pau a ho o maki ka ho o ka ina maka koho ana ina I kama hana. So today we are going to be working on finishing the review of all the policies and actions that we started on last time, and on prioritizing the actions. And next week we'll start working on land use, on the land use section of the community plan. So at this time, opening up to a public testimony on the policy and action review, and also on prioritizing the actions.
Hi, Doug Ballard, South Maui resident and also with Maui Tomorrow. Can you not hear? Doug Ballard, South Maui resident, better? And also with Maui Tomorrow. I want to make just a couple brief comments, but kind of in a big picture. Let's step back for a second. And it has to do with the policy regarding the Mocha bypass that you all are considering. And we're suggesting that you delay that until such time as you determine the need. And you do that through your land use decisions. How much growth do you want to see? And that's all within your power to determine. One of the things I found a little bit interesting when I read the preamble of the land use section, and I'm going to paraphrase it perhaps not very well, but it said something like these are the population projections and we need to decide the land uses so they meet the population projections, and quite frankly, that's backwards. You have the ability to determine how much growth you want. You can utilize factors such as quality of life, infrastructure and resource limitations that you have, all kinds of things that you can, environmental issues, preservation of cultural and archaeological resources, and what do you want South Maui to be? And that's coming up. And so we would suggest that before you commit to something that's really growth oriented to accommodate future growth, determine what you think that growth should look like. And quite frankly, when you consider things like building the bypass, that in and of itself will be an accelerator of growth. And so those are things that you guys have to, I think, decide upon when you're in your land use discussions, and then perhaps revisit the bypass afterwards, once you determine what you want South Maui to be like. And so those are my comments.
Question from first Mike and then Wayne.
Doug, thank you for coming. I think you come almost every week and give us input, so we certainly appreciate that. Addressing that point about waiting to do a new road, conversely, what we have seen is that the infrastructure always seems to fall behind. I mean, we can see the original North-South Collector Road was never built, even though it's in the 1998 plan. and all the development happens, but the infrastructure does not. So we're kind of looking, or some of us, or me, I should say, is looking at it the opposite way of saying, don't delay building infrastructure, maybe delay other things. It doesn't mean your point is wrong, it's just a different perspective.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I would
So
say...
point of order here. We're not doing discussion. We're asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Wayne?
Thank you. Doug, I read under the April 3rd, 2023 communication to the committee, and under justification, you state, for the record, from 2010 to 2020, census figures indicate that the population of South Maui has barely changed. Is this a fact?
I'm not familiar. That's something that our executive director put in, and I assume that that's correct, but I don't personally know it. I haven't looked at those figures.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions for the testifier? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next testifier.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for being here and hearing us. Regarding the last statement that was stated, I come to you and I humbly ask to prioritize the North-South Collector Road. I'll tell you why. I agree with Mike, Mr. Moran, in that for too many years we have seen in South Maui, North and South Kihei, buildings, hotels without infrastructure. And I think it's important and very, very relevant to the safety of our families. Now, I would like to see everything kept as is, my backyard, Haleakala Ranch, but that's unrealistic. Haleakala Ranch is subdividing. Someone will buy it and develop homes, I pray. But we need the roads because the infrastructure in North Kihei is somewhat very negligent. I see children on my road, Ho'alike and Ohukai, Mauka, trying to ride their bikes, trying to even walk their street. They're unable to. There's no way for them to play. There's cars along both sides of the highway. So, in short, my friends, I humbly ask that you do prioritize the North-South Collector Road and any infrastructure that is needed both in North and South Kihei. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Daniel?
Hi, Daniel. Be
Hi,
kind.
Sandra. Sorry to make you act like a yo-yo, bouncing back and forth, but I wanted to ask you
Yes.
about the growth of Mauka Pi'ilani Highway.
Yes.
Are you aware that the Maui Research and Technology Park is planning to build 1,200, can build up to 1,200?
Yes, my
units?
concern to Daniel is not only, and combined with that project, there is also to the committee, if I may, Chair, the fact that all of Haleakala Ranch, from my backyard all the way up towards Kula, is being subdivided now. And I'm sure it will be sold. And I'm sure development will take place. Many years ago when we stand before the last commission here, one woman from Wailea stipulated that we should not, as a group, look at one development, but look at all of them cumulatively for our South Maui community. Yes, Daniel, I am aware of that one, but I'm also aware, contiguous to that, will be Haleakala land subdivision. Yes, thank you, Daniel, for the question.
Sorry, I didn't have a chance to ask my second part of my question.
Oh, go ahead.
So if you're aware of that, how many residential units do we need to accommodate growth?
Okay. Regarding the amount that we need to develop, to accommodate our community, that is well documented. And Mike Moran will testify to that. Lucene Dene will testify to that. Is well documented in the county records. Because that TIG group already did the work. And it's a lot more than we have. So we will need it. But it's like Mr. Moran said, prior to development, we need to create safe communities for our children and our mo'opuna and our little kupunas like me. I cannot walk my street. My neighbor's children and grandchildren cannot walk my street. There is no place to go. We need infrastructure. Yes, I'm sorry, did I answer your question? Mahalo, Daniel. Ahui ho, malama.
Any other clarifying questions? The testifier? Next testifier.
Aloha, my name is Lucienne Dine, and I did pass out some testimony, a page, 2 pages. I'm passing out a map now. I couldn't afford to print 15 copies in color right this week, but I'm here to look at a practical viewpoint. I did serve on that GPAC. I will say that the amount of growth that the GPAC recommended and the county staff, planning staff recommended, were just about doubled when it got to the county council because everyone who had land wanted to make their land more valuable. So where we looked at maybe having additional development besides everything that was already approved and not built for another 2,000, 2,500 units, the council said, oh no, 4,000, 4,500 are needed. And that's why we have these very big growth boundaries. Those were not the boundaries that came out of the Citizens Committee. But I'm here too to support the North-South Road. I did suggest one little tweak that possibly there's some areas, you know, that where the right-of-way just has been gobbled up. And if it's possible to tweak it in any way that those sections could be, you know, built, just put the language in that says, you know, if the right-of-way needs to be changed a little bit, that is something that's supported. Also, we really need to get real about reducing the amount of vehicles that it takes to have our community function. Lots of small metropolitan areas have done this. It's a combination of social engineering, you know, like we've been talking, working with employers, working with schools, working with those who generate large loads of traffic, and figuring out how the same amount of people can move in fewer vehicles or at different times, so it's not just this choke. And so I suggest a little language to add in that so that it's not just a pie in the sky, wouldn't it be nice if this happened, consider this, but that we actually suggest that there be a timeline and some specific goals for making this happen. And look at the number of vehicle trips we would like to reduce. This body does not have to come up with that number, but someone at our county should be looking at a number like that. So I just suggested a little bit of language in there. I'm sorry, my language was in red. It's now kind of in gray, the changing. So, and then there's the idea of the future bypass corridor. Once again, being practical, I mean, we can set a corridor way, way up where no one's planning to build and just say, oh, well, landowners, you have to put this in. Or we can look at a corridor that actually goes through. I passed out a map of the high-tech park. There's actually a road that goes through that could continue. Haleakala Ranch owns the land to the right and Ko'onu'ulu to the left. And it might just be a far more practical thing to look at, but it wouldn't be a highway, it'd be a collector road. Sorry, is that my time up?
Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Daniel.
So this road to the Maui Research and Technology Park, which I see on the map, it dead ends, right, on the south and the north end.
Absolutely. But it is a big section that would be built. If the development goes in there, a road to accommodate it would go in. And what we could work on, if it was part of our planning process, is getting the right-of-ways that would adjoin it, whether there's development there or not.
So you see that, I'm sorry, Jeremy, one more question. So you see that segment maybe as a base first leg for additional segments to be built going north and south above Pi'ilani Highway potentially?
You know, when I sat on GPAC, we were given a master plan of that whole area with plans for village, quote-unquote, villages by Ko'ono'ulu and Haleakala Ranch. And yes, they connected the road and ran it through. And I believe Rob has a map that shows like a green line that shows the approximate route. Is it the perfect route? Probably not, but it's a lower route, and it could help constrain the amount of development that's in the area, because development would be likely in the lower areas first, rather than putting a road way up high, and then everything in between fills in and you still don't have enough traffic capacity.
Any other clarifying questions? Wayne?
Lucianne, the Mauka Road above Pi'ilani Highway, and I'm sure you studied the roadway. What about important cultural sites?
There are some very important cultural sites, Mauka of the highway. Some are in the Kamoli area, along Kamaoli Gulch. There's a whole native forest that would, needed to be avoided, and many cultural sites. There's many in Kulana Hakoi Gulch, and I would guess Waipuilani as well. So we really don't know much about just, putting a road somewhere. That's why I just suggest this concept of a collector road, which is, it's a smaller road, but it gets a lot of traffic off of Pi'ilani. But yes, those are concerns. Those are definitely concerns. And we do not know a lot. There's been a few archaeological studies done, and I've read them, and that's what I'm basing my reply to you on.
Any other clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier.
Good evening again, CPAC members, Rory Frampton, and just for the record, I do consulting work for both Ko'ono'ulu and Haleakala Ranch. I support the previous testimony about including the Mauka bypass within the designated growth areas. The urban growth boundary that was established by the CPAC, or the GPAC, the General Plan Advisory Committee, did include Kihei Mauka. This notion that the community plan can control the rate of growth has been talked about, and it's based on one of two things. One, if you don't designate the area, it won't grow, and two, that you can do that to control the rate of growth, and you can just update the maps every 10 years and use it as a growth control mechanism. That's not the way historically it's worked on Maui. First of all, we don't update our plans regularly. We don't do them every 10 years, so that argument kind of falls on its face right from the start. Secondly, it's really dictated by economic demands, and if there is a lot of pressure for growth and you don't have enough lands in the community plan, or infrastructure for that matter, you're going to get sporadic unplanned growth, because a developer can always come in and do a community plan amendment on their own, or they can do a 201H application, which is a state law that allows you to exempt yourself from the community plan. So if you're too tight, and if you're relying too rigidly on these population forecasts and saying we only need so many units in the next 10 years, you could set yourself up for a plan that doesn't meet our future needs, especially if it doesn't get updated. Just one comment about the Haleakala Ranch subdivision, which has been mentioned a number of times. It's just carving out the urban growth boundary. It's just a one large lot subdivision, and the remaining lot stays intact all the way up to Kula. So it's actually a 2-lot subdivision over the course of, I don't know, a couple thousand acres. So it's just creating one lot out of the urban growth boundary. So there's not any development immediately happening. The ranches have been patiently waiting for this process to occur. They want to get their plans designated in so that things can materialize in a planned fashion. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to the testifier? Daniel?
Aloha, Rory.
Hello.
Yeah, I was there for the island plan when they designated the urban growth boundary for South Maui, North Kihei. And my understanding is that when it got down to the community plan level, that the community plan would determine how much growth would occur in the urban growth boundary. Is that your understanding too?
I think my understanding was that the community plan could could provide spatial allocations. They didn't necessarily need to include the whole urban growth boundary, but it was to really refine what's going to go inside those urban growth boundaries.
So I think we're pretty much saying the same thing, right? Work within the urban growth boundary that the community plans will sort of govern how much of that urban growth boundary is used?
That's where I think, spatially, I think that's correct. But when you're starting to talk about controlling the timing or the rate of growth, that's where I think there becomes a problem. And I think the community plan should really define the spatial allocation and the type and nature of growth within the urban growth boundaries, and not be concerned with the amount, because it will happen over time, or it may not happen over time, but it's better to plan for it rather than to not plan for it and to have it come and occur in a random or haphazard manner. Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions for Rory? Thank you. Next testifier.
Aloha, good evening. David Good here. I hadn't planned on testifying, but when I saw the testimony related to not taking any action on this upper highway concept, I thought, well, geez, that's not good planning at all. And I like the comment Lucien had about, a possible north-south collector. The way I see that language, and I know it got deferred from last time, that's fine, is to think of it as not that a road is magically going to be built in 10 years or maybe even 20 years, but we should plan and design and implement. So currently in the language, right, it says design and implement. We haven't even thought about planning. You got to plan for that road. And basically the only way you're going to plan for it is to do an EIS. The state or the county or the both of them have to do an EIS. And the EIS looks at what are the cultural impacts potential? How do we avoid that? What are the archaeological impacts? What are the impacts to future growth? How does it dovetail with all the current plans, so whether it's Maui Island plan or this plan when it gets finalized? I think you need to have language to at least do that. And then you can find out what is the best option. Maybe it is a collector road. Maybe it is another highway. Maybe it's done in phases. Maybe it's done with various developments. Maybe it's like the suggestion I had earlier was get it from the R&T park, which I think you just said had up to 1,200 homes, get it to the high school. So I think there's a lot of options there, but you're going to have to do an EIS. And you might as well start it now because it's an extremely long process. And to get funding for those roads is a really long-term thing. So let's plan on planning. That's it.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Next testifier. Going once. Going twice. Public testimony closed, and we'll now start on, we'll pick up where we left off last time on the reviewing the policies and actions.
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
With your permission, before we get to deliberation, I'd like to request that we review the vision for the South Maui plan, which is one of our guiding statements. So if there aren't any objections, I'd like to read the vision statement found on page 9. That's my request. I'd be happy to read it.
So you're asking just to read it, or you're asking for discussion?
No, I'm asking to read the vision statement before we start discussion, wherever you want to begin discussion.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is on page 9. It reads, South Maui tomorrow. This plan reflects the future the South Maui community is striving to achieve. The vision is the community's expression of this future and should guide the actions of decision makers throughout the life of the plan. South Maui's vision. South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving. With affordable housing, close to good jobs, and a variety of transportation options, including safe walking and biking paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrated, enhancing South Maui's sense of place. I just want to briefly say that the vision statement is our guiding star. It's like hokulea. It's supposed to help lead us to our preferred future. So I think it's essential that from this point forward, Chair, if we could review it before deliberating at every meeting for the next however many weeks we have in deliberating the plan, so that we know that we as a body are on track to achieving this vision. Thank you.
Okay, so we actually also have a presentation today by Scott Forsyth, Acting Planning and Implementation Division Chief. So I'll give the word to Scott at this point.
Now, okay, there we go. Aloha, good evening. I'm Scott Forsyth, a senior planner with the planning department. And I'm sitting where right now probably Director Aoki should be sitting. She was the former division chief for the plan implementation division. But I'm here today to talk a little bit about what our division does. There should be 4 of us in the division, but as you can see, there's 3 of us right now, and I'm acting for Kathleen at the moment. You can go to the next one. All right, so what do we do in the plan implementation division? There's quite a bit that we do. We're responsible for general plan monitoring and implementation. We take on special projects and programs, assist the mayor's office with capital improvement program reporting, and review projects for consistency with the general plan documents, and draft or track state legislation as well as county zoning ordinances and regulations related to these plans. The division also coordinates with other county departments, state and federal agencies to monitor their progress towards the implementation of the general plan, and we also provide GIS support for plan implementation projects. There are two reports that we are required to do annually, directed by the county charter as well as Maui County Code. The first is annually we review the proposed capital improvement program budget and provide our responses to the mayor's office. And secondly, we issue a report to the mayor and county council on the implementation of the general plan and community plans. These annual implementation reports can serve as a snapshot in time on the county's progress. The most recent annual implementation status reports are available on our webpage, the department's homepage, under Hot Topics. They're quite hefty. It's a lot of just spreadsheets, and I'm sure it's really fun to read, but it's about 180 pages for you to look at if you'd like. All right, next slide. So this is just an example of an action item from the countywide policy plan. The planning department isn't a project implementer like, say, Public Works or the Department of Transportation. We don't buy buses, we don't build roads, we don't buy land, but we do manage programs. And so this, for instance, is the old zoning map, and we have these old zoning maps that date back to the 60s, and they're big paper maps covered with tape and colors and everything else, and that was prior to 2018. Today, we now have an online version of zoning for all the county parcels, and it meets the goal of the action of strive for good government action, expand government online services. So just an example. Next slide. And you may have seen this diagram before, but what this is illustrating is the hierarchy of the general plan documents. On top is the countywide policy plan, which provides broad policies and objectives to portray the desired direction of the county's future on topics such as environment, cultural preservation, education, social and health services, housing, economy, parks, transportation, infrastructure, land use, and growth management, and good governance. And then below the countywide policy plan are the 3 island plans for Molokai, Lanai, and Maui. And getting down even farther, we work into the 9 regional community plans. And these contain goals, objectives, policies, and implementing actions that require implementation once they are adopted. In all of these plans, the total combined implementing actions equals 1,261. Now that will evolve over time as new plans are developed, and such as now, and new actions replace the 1998 Kihei McKenna Community Plan, and so I'm sure the numbers will slightly adjust with that. For all of the actions, also to note, each action is assigned to a county department or agency. So there's about 14 county departments and agencies that take a role in implementing the implementation action items that are created within these community plans. There's also our state and federal partners who are assigned actions as well, but it's a little more difficult to coordinate with them sometimes. But there's a breakdown of it here on this chart right there. So on this slide, we're looking at the 1998 Kihei McKenna Community Plan, and this is what's included in that one implementation status report that I referred to just a second ago. So the table on the left, this is a tally of and a snapshot on the status of the plan's 58 action items. So the 98 plan has 58 action items. And as reported to the planning department by our various county department agencies, the actions are tracked in sort of a very general sense, because it's very difficult to track each specific project over a life cycle of a plan. So there's more reporting that goes just on, is the action item in progress? Is it ongoing? Is it not begun? Is it completed? And I'm sure you can't see it on there, but for the 58 action items in the plan, All county department actions are 45. The remainder are for state, federal, or other agencies. And planning is lead on 19 of these action items. A total of 12 have been completed. 18 are in progress, 9 are ongoing, and 6 have not begun. Okay, go to the next one. All right, so now we're moving into implementation. So implementation of the general plan can occur in many ways, including new legislation, changes to Maui County Code, whether it's Title 19 or the subdivision code, the affordable housing code, the water code, et cetera. New programs, for example, energy savings programs, diversified agriculture, and promoting local products. The capital improvement program budgeting process that are identified in the plans, and through that process we have such as like the Molokai Police Station or a new fire station in Haiku. And then within the various agencies, including the Department of Planning, we as planners, the director, we make decisions as well in the applications that we review for projects, for all the various types of permits we assess, and the Planning Commission as well. There's also the executive branch, the mayor's office, and they oversee policies, procedures, and recommendations. The legislative branch is the county council, and they adopt legislation. And then there's public-private party actions and partnerships. Go ahead. All right, so your role here. South Maui CPAC's role, and I'm sure that you have heard this before, you're charged with reviewing and recommending revisions to the community plan for its community plan area. That's in Maui County Code. And also review and make recommendations for the goals, objectives, policies, and actions in the draft plan. So plans shall be based on sound policy and information. That's also in County Code. Getting into prioritization of the action elements. So kind of just a couple of things to think about is one, for the existing 1,261 implementing actions, can they all be implemented? Probably not. There's probably just not enough money in this state to implement all the projects, and there's always shifting priorities and attitudes and views on what is the highest priority. Also, the priorities, projects, and programs evolve over time, as does the desires of the community, along with advances in technology, the emergence or disappearance of certain industries, or even how the COVID lockdown provided us with a different perspective on the natural environment, seeing drastically less cars on the road, how and where people choose to live, such as telecommuting. So my point being is that there are many uncertain factors and some limitations, such as funding, involved in the community plan implementation. For the actions you develop, consider differentiating the needs from the wants and what may realistically be achievable. Because for those of us who actually do look at these plans, it's important to know what the community's high priorities are. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the members? Daniel.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
I'm Daniel. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and let you answer. And
Great.
If no one else has questions, then I have a couple more questions. So I'm just going to ask 3 in a row, then you can answer after that. So the first question I have is, how long have you been in the planning implementation division? And along with that, these reports, annual reports, has there been a report made every year since 1998 up until the present? And when are the annual reports due? And do you also report to the county council?
First, I've been with the Plan Implementation Division only since October of last year. I was with our current planning division for 4 years before that. I've been in Hawaii since about 2007, and I have about 15 years of planning experience prior to all of this. For the status reports, I'm not certain how far those go back in time. However, on our website, there are several years, I believe, that you can track and take a look at what has been reported. We start looking at the action items around the fall of each year and try to wrap it up by the end of the year to provide to council and the mayor at the beginning of the year. It's kind of been a funky year with the election and kind of the delays in council, so we have not yet been there to provide a presentation on it. However, annually that has happened. And did you have another question, or was that?
I'll defer if anyone else wants to ask a question, and they can come back to me.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I'm back. So the other question I had is the annual report a measurement of, do you report on how successful achieving for the community plan, a measurement of the success at achieving the policies and objectives and goals of the community plan? Is that part of the metric that you're reporting? And also why we aren't meeting certain metrics? Do you do that too as part of the review or report?
Probably the quick answer is no in the actions itself, or the 1,200 actions. When we reach out to the various departments, and there's programs that are ongoing, such as road maintenance, that's going to be going on and on. You know, that's not going to just be in progress, it's just going to be an ongoing thing. Then there are other projects that are water projects, sewer projects, and we need to work with the water department to figure out the status of what their projects are. So specific to individual projects, those questions really need to go to the implementing agencies. Another measure we do look at, though, is within these annual reports, other than just looking at all the various plan implementing actions, we do an accounting of the various types of permits that we receive, some of the major land use ones, such as county special use permits, changes in zoning, conditional permits, and we also keep track of community plan amendments, things like that. So I think we would like to have a better way to be able to collect and assess all this data, but we're not at that point yet. I mean, it's still pretty basic types of evaluations that we're doing on the implementation of the general plans.
I just have a couple more questions. So,
sure, and I can let Garrett answer the rest of them.
The community plan is 25 years old. How are we doing? If you would give us a grade, would it be A, B, C, D, E, or F regarding achieving the goals, objectives, and policies of the community plan, 25-year-old plan? And the other question I have has to do with the urban growth boundary. The Maui Island Plan established the urban growth boundary. What role does the community plan play in determining growth? If you can answer that. So, yeah, the first question is a grade from your department, planning and implementation for our community plan, that I hope there's a grade given to the mayor. I hope there's a grade given to the county council. Can you give us, as a CPAC, the grade for the current plan? And then the other question about urban growth and the role that the CPAC, not the CPAC, but the community plan plays in determining growth for the district. Thank you.
So Pitt, in the Plan Implementation Division, we focus on the actions, and we're trying to advance the actions and track the actions. The best measure that I really can provide are what has been completed, what is ongoing, and what has not been completed. And so since I believe 6 of the implementing actions have yet to even happen, our work has yet to even begin. That tells me that those people's attitudes shifted over time. Maybe they were just more of a wish type of project. And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want a letter grade, if you can do that.
Well, there's a reason why I didn't become a teacher, because
just to keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Are we
Well,
at C
let me,
or B or what? What's our grade?
Okay, let me answer it this way. I think we're in a new era of how we are how we are creating our community plans. If you just look at the prior community plans, there's a lot of text, and there's not as much maybe sophistication and focus on it. I don't want to say that those efforts were not, an intensive effort or anything, but I wasn't around in '98 in the development of it. But if I were to give you a grade, yeah, you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah, if I could chime in as well too. I guess to follow up on some of Scott's clarification of the Planned Implementation Division really is focusing on the actions and not the overall success of, let's say, the goals and the policies that you've indicated, Daniel. I think it's challenging because we may have a goal of everybody shall be housed with decent, safe housing. We could have a dozen of different action items, some being implemented, some not, and that goal still remains. So again, I think, at least from my perspective, I'd probably give you a non-answer answer as far as a grade. It depends on who you talk to. I think a lot of people who may have, again, decent and safe housing might think that it's a success for that aspect of the plan versus somebody who's unhoused. Same thing with traffic. It depends if you're stuck in traffic or not. I think there's always work to be done on improving the plans, and I think there never is going to be probably as much success that we would like.
I'm sorry, it sounds like my son who doesn't want to show me his report card. That's what it sounds like to me, but thank you.
Question from Wayne.
Scott, thank you for your testimony and honesty. I guess you told me that the annual reports have not been filed for years. Basically, we're lawbreakers. And if you had to tell me tonight in listening to this committee and what we're discussing, what would be your first advice in this planning process?
So the current implementation reports have been submitted, and I need to back up just a little bit here, is that the Plan Implementation Division was created in 2014 to start focusing on these issues. So since 2014, And I assumed before, so as long as this has been within county code to submit these reports, my assumption is that they have been submitted. I didn't pay particular attention to how far they went back. We're looking at the website right now, and so possibly I can tell you. Yeah, so I can get back to you on that, but I just don't have an answer for you at this time. But the current one has been submitted.
Any other questions for Scott? Thank you. Okay, now let's get on with the pick up where we left off last time. Let's see. So let's see. Last time. Last time we left off at 1.03c. Decided to defer the discussion on that one. 1.03c. Require adequate interregional highway capacity, including the widening of Aupilani Highway to 4 lanes prior to or concurrent with the construction of major projects as determined by Hawaii Department of Transportation, Department of Public Works, south of Kilahana Road or Mauka Pilani Highway, south of Kilahana. Daniel?
Chair, I think 1.03c, I think I'd like to take that up. I would like to discuss that. This was deferred on 3/22, and I believe I made the motion. Let me get my glasses on so I can see if it's up there. Yeah, require adequate interregional highway capacity, including the widening of Aupilani Highway to 4 lanes prior to or concurrent with the construction of major projects as determined by Hawaii Department of Transportation, Department of Public Works, south of Kilahana Road, or Mauka Pi'ilani Highway, south of Kilahana. So that was the motion that we discussed, and I asked to be deferred, and I forgot who seconded it, but I believe it was seconded. And so I like to put the motion on the floor.
Is there a second?
Back on the floor.
Second by Jennifer. Discussion?
Who seconded it?
Jennifer.
Oh, hi, Jen. So as just opening remarks, I just want to say that this is one of the goals that's been weighing on me since this past week. And I'd like to amend the motion.
You can make a friendly amendment if you accept it.
I'm going to make a friendly amendment to myself. And then hopefully the seconder is okay with Jen. And so I'd like to amend it to, let's see. Okay, I'd like to remove, oh, it's gone. You really removed it. It's like, wow.
So what's your proposal?
I want to wait till it gets up. It's not there, we can't see it. The text.
I think it's on your desk, though.
Okay, can everybody see it? Shall I proceed? Okay, so I'm going to delete the Hawaiian Department of Transportation and in its place put the Department of Planning. And then one of the issues that we had was determining what major projects mean, because that's major is imprecise. What does major mean? And what does projects mean? We asked for planning for if they had a definition for major projects, and they couldn't come up with one. So I'm going to come up with one. And so after, oh my gosh, it's still not up. Is it broken? Is it broken? Oh, this is going to be a problem. Okay, because you're not going to be able to see it, so maybe you can write it in or whatever. So after the last sentence, I would like to insert major projects, comma, in this instance, comma, include all residential and visitor accommodation developments that are part of a common plan of development or sales, like a phased development, that collectively or individually build X dwelling units or more. So I have to fill in what X means. I'm going to repeat what I said again. The last sentence, the new edition would read, major projects, comma, in this instance, comma, include all residential and visitor accommodation developments that are part of a common plan of development or sales, like a phased development, that collectively or individually build X dwelling units or more. So that's going to be my amendment to my motion. And if the seconder agrees, then I'll explain why I'm doing this. It's fine with you? So my reasoning is that since 1998, when this was adopted, the old language, this is based on the old language, is in the current plan. The highway has been widened only to Kilohana Road, where the fire department and the dog park is. The part from Kilohana to Waileiki Drive has not been widened yet. How much development, how many units have been built south of Kilohana since 1998? Now, I've lived in Maui Meadows for many years. I've seen the increase in traffic on that section of Pi'ilani Highway, which is narrow. It's a bottleneck during peak hours. A couple of the reasons why you would want to widen the highway are safety. Before, it didn't matter, right? There were hardly any cars there when they first built it, but now there are more and more cars. So now there's a safety issue, and that's why they're putting a stoplight at Okulani, Miki'oi, and Pi'ilani, because of the many, many accidents that have occurred over that intersection over the years. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, no one has been killed, but there have been many collisions. And so finally, they're putting in a lighted intersection for safety reasons. The other reason you would want to widen it when you have more traffic is so that people can get to where they need to go in a timely fashion. I see hundreds of cars driving into Wailea every morning, mostly guys trying to get to work, and then leave in the afternoon going home when their shift is over. If you continue to build out south of Kilohana, the traffic is going to get more and more and more. It's going to bottleneck there, and it's going to cause delays, which is going to be a lack of efficiency. Efficiency is the ability to get around quickly and predictably. So as more cars use the road, we reduce the efficiency. So there's safety and efficiency. Now, having this in the current plan hasn't resulted in the widening of Pi'ilani Highway. And I think part of the problem is there's no trigger for it. And so we need to put in a trigger. Major projects, what does that mean, right? So I want to fill in X. Major projects in this instant include all visitor or residential accommodation. Oh, you're missing a lot of language there. Okay, let me reread it. Major projects, comma, in this instance, comma, include all residential and visitor accommodation developments, right, that are part of a common plan that are part of a common plan of development or sales, like phased development, like a phased development, comma, that collectively or individually build X dwelling units or more. That collectively or individually build X dwelling units or more. Okay, I think we got it. So I think it's time we make this implementing policy objective work for our community. You want to develop south of Kilahana, and it's a major development, then the highway has to be widened. And we can't rely on HDOT, Hawaiian Department of Transportation, because they're working their own agreements with individual developers and making minimal improvements to Pi'ilani Highway and ignoring the amount of potential buildings in these projects. And I asked in a meeting with engineers in the HDOT, do you know that in our community plan, it says that the Pi'ilani Highway has to be widened all the way to Waile'ike, prior to or concurrent with any major developments. I said, do you know that? And I was told they didn't know that because they don't really look at community plans. They don't look at them. And that's an issue. And I don't know why they don't look at them, because it's part of the general plans. And I think if we dig down, they should be required to look at community plans and consult with the Department of Planning when these projects come before them, and not make their own individual memorandums of agreement for improvements to Pi'ilani Highway. So I think we need to fix that. And I'm hoping this language will fix it if we can fill in what X is as dwellings. What is X? Is it 25? And I'm looking, if you have a master plan development and you're going to build 25 units or 50 units or 100 units in a master plan development, a phased development, or if you're going to expand the hotel and you're going to build 100 rooms in there, then that should trigger the widening of Pi'ilani Highway. and complete it out to Wailea Ike. So this is my motion, which has been seconded, and I want to fill in what X is. I know what I'd like X to be. So,
Please state X so we can discuss it. Please state X so we can discuss it.
I'll start with 50 or 10. 10, we'll start with 50. I think it should be 50. If he's got 50, whether it's a combination of guest rooms in a hotel or a project, residential project, that should trigger the widening of Piilani to 4 lanes.
Discussion?
What say you?
Okay, discussion. Everett?
Daniel, I agree with you. I too would like to see 4 lanes, and I agree with you on your comments on the morning traffic and the afternoon traffic. I think this works against that goal. There are triggers already. The 670 project has a requirement. The McKenna project has a requirement. And the Wailea projects, while it might not have a requirement for 4 lanes because it was done so many years ago, but those projects do have to go through an SMA process, and the Planning Commission imposes conditions to fair share traffic improvements, both on a county and a state basis. Also support leaving the Hawaii Department of Transportation, and they're in the business of building the roads, and that's a state highway. The improvements are being made. You mentioned the traffic improvements, and that is part of the widening of the highway. That's one small portion of widening the highway. But as 670 comes along, as McKenna Resort comes along, and I believe there's Wailea is also part of an agreement that requires it to pay pro rata share based on a number of units. But putting this condition in would basically impede the development of 4 lanes, to 4 lanes, as opposed to encourage the development to 4 lanes, because it's not going to happen all at one time. It's going to be broken up in phases. It's a major project, it's an expensive project, and it's putting this condition on means nothing is going to be improved, and we're all going to be suffering along in traffic. And I agree with you also that it's a safety issue. So I want it like you do. I'm on that end of the island. I experience the and see the traffic, but this is going to impede the construction, not assist the construction. And there are triggers. It's in the zoning for McKenna. It's in the zoning for 670. Wailea has entered into an agreement, and every project in that area, well, not every project, but most of the projects in that area require SMA permits, and the Planning Commission of late has been requiring participation.
Daniel?
No. I'm just going to respond. There was no problem building the 4 lanes all the way from Mokulele to Kilohana. That didn't seem to be a problem. There seems to be a problem with finishing the 1.2 miles left of the highway. True, Wailea 670 does have a condition of zoning which requires them to build Piilani Highway to 4 lanes before they can build vertical. I don't think that this will exempt them from doing that. It's the condition of zoning. They have to do it. If it does exempt them, that we should put it in the language. LEDCOR has their own agreement, memorandum of agreement. Their trigger is 150 to build a stub lane of 800 feet. McKenna Resort, in their condition of zoning, has to pay their pro rata share of widening Piilani Highway. But you're going to do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then you have more and more and more things being built, as it has over the last 25 years, and what's in the current community plan does not seem to be working. The highway should have been widened by now. So I don't necessarily agree that putting a number in here it's going to make things take longer. I think it'll make it happen quicker because developers want their projects to move forward. And if there's a trigger of 50 dwellings, then they need to widen the highway. Wailea Resort has to get, whoever goes first, right? Whether it's Wailea, whether it's McKenna, whether it's Wailea 670, they're going to get it done because they want to build their projects. But at the same time, you have to realize that there are safety issues that are growing, and there are efficiency issues that are growing. So there's a need to widen the highway. And the longer we wait, the worse it's going to get in terms of safety and efficiency. And so something has to be done to change it because nothing has changed in 25 years. So I think we should make a decision.
Let Brian first and then Everett.
Thank you, and my apologies for being late. I was marrying somebody, so. Although stepping in quite late, so I didn't hear everything Daniel had to say, the last parts I completely agree with. The bottlenecks going down that last little strip of the highway is painful. I can also say that I was involved working with getting the traffic light installed, and it took us 18 months just to get it back on the radar, thanks to some help with some other folks. But they literally told us it was going to take 3 weeks per side, and it's now 5 weeks, and they haven't finished the first side. So I personally just look at the growth that's happening in McKenna, what's happening in Wailea. I would actually argue I wouldn't even wait till 50. I'd be like, whenever the project kicks off, it has to start because we need it now. And if those projects start in 2, 3 years, 4 years, it's not as if immediately that's going to start. So we're talking about at least 5 to 10 years that we're still going to be dealing with this. To Daniel's point, there's been a lot of accidents at that intersection, so it is quite dangerous. I personally live right by there, so I won't go out Okalani. I go down to Kilahana to take the light, just to actually go to Maui Meadows. So it's super frustrating. But the amount of traffic and getting backed up, you can't even cross the highway many times. And that's not even just middle of the day. It's not just peak hours. There's literally points you just cannot cross the highway to get to Maui Meadows. So I think we're impeding families that live up there that are trying to commute, get back and forth. And I think it would be foolish to not push this harder because we know the development's going to come. We might not all like it, but we know that some form or some fashion is coming, but the need's here today. So to wait for saying, hey, let's have more development, future time frames, I think would be foolish.
Everett.
Okay, think about what you're saying. You're saying that 50 projects, a 50-unit project needs to extend that highway, widen that highway to 4 lanes. It's never going to happen. All right, if you want to assure that it never gets widened, this is a great way to do it.
Mike?
Thank you. The aspect of removing the State Department of Transportation from this, I fully support that. Daniel mentioned that he heard from some engineers. I heard stronger language from the director or deputy director at the time of highways, who is now the director, who, when he was asked about our community plan, he said, "I don't care about the community plan." It wasn't like he wasn't considering. I don't care about it. Well, I thought that was pretty arrogant, and it was like that. Well, I'm the state, and who are you? So I think they're not doing the job. I further heard from many years ago from I think she was the deputy director at the time. And when we asked that question from KCA about the infrastructure, her response was, it's not the state's fault that the infrastructure is not keeping up with development. It's because the county is giving the okay to just keep developing and developing. The state is not doing that. It's the county's fault. So with those kind of attitudes coming from that department, why are we including that we have to have their okay? They don't seem to, I won't say they don't seem, they don't care. I mean, when the director tells you, I don't care, he's not interested in our community plan, it's almost like, well, we're all wasting our time here as far as the state goes because whatever we say doesn't matter. So I do agree with that aspect of removing that. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Thank you. I want to revisit what Everett's saying. So I totally get it. If you're going to put that kind of strain on a 50-unit development, it's never going to happen financially. Is that what you're referring to? Right. So is there a way we can work around that? Because a developer of that size developing 50 units cannot afford the extension of the road. So to link the two is what you're alluding to. Maybe we obviously need to consider unlinking the two to make this happen, if that's to hear what Everett's saying as well. So I don't know how to do that specifically, but what do you think, Daniel?
Wailea Resort is a master plan development. McKenna Resort is a master plan development. Wailea 670 is a master plan development. Most of the developments are master plan developments. They have a project and they want to move forward with it, and they need to widen the highway because they're going to build 50 units. They're going to do it. If it's a small project, maybe it's a small developer, maybe that'll be an issue. But I think the road needs to be widened if you're going to develop any more over there. I mean, you've been waiting 25 years. How much, seems like we've given a lot already, right? You were asking to give a little bit more. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Brian?
So, Everett, I guess my question to you, if you feel that this would be an impediment, how would you craft it? What would you propose would be kind of the flip side so that it does get done? Because again, at this point, we're so far behind schedule, 20 years, 25 years. It needs to happen like now. So how would you propose that we get it so that it actually happens?
Okay, let's go back 25 years. The only one of the three projects, major projects that was approved 25 years ago was Wailea Resort. And 670 has been approved now for, let's see, it's probably 16 years, and it's been tied up in litigation for 16 years. McKenna's been approved for, with this condition to participate in the road widening for 15 years. Every project that comes across in Wailea or McKenna or 670 is tied up in litigation. Every single one. So the only way this would work would be to exempt all of those projects from SMA so that they know that they're going to move forward, because no one's going to spend this kind of money, $10 million, without knowing that they have a project. It's never going to get built. All right? It's not. No one's going to step forward and spend this kind of money not knowing if they have a project. Having zoning and being able to develop a project are two completely different things. So, I mean, you asked a question, my answer would be exactly what the DOT has been doing is charge a pro rata percentage based on the number of units, and the DOE takes the lead on it. It's a state highway. You can't cut out DOT.
So I think we need to move to a decision here. So, Karen?
This is a policy if you're going to keep the language as it is. This is a policy because it is not an action for the county. It is an action that you're asking of the developers when they come in for a permit.
Right.
But you could adopt it as a policy. We can note that.
Daniel?
It is under policy and objectives in the current plan. That's where it's listed. So, yeah, okay, so McKenna, Wailea Resort, what are we building? What have we been building in that area for the last 25 years? We've been building market price housing, high-end housing. I just read our vision statement, and in the vision statement it says, with affordable housing close to good jobs and a variety of transportation options. We're not building a lot of affordable housing or workforce housing. We haven't built a lot. Haven't built any, to my knowledge, in Wailea and McKenna. And they have been providing homes, they've been providing jobs, but not homes for working people. So, yeah, maybe people can't build their high-end market price housing in that area, and that's going to be a huge loss for working force and people who need homes here on Maui, but that's part of our vision. Still, I don't know what else we can do to get the highway widened because it's not happening.
Brian?
So, sorry to put you on the spot, but just trying to help figure out how we can navigate through this. So if we were to move the building condition, and I understand your point of the developers are getting potentially caught up in litigation, if it's not the developers that are going to be on the hook to pay for it, then how do we get it paid for? So it kind of seems like it's either tied to the developer or it's not going to get funded. Quickly, just on the light, I can tell you that the state didn't care. They could have absolutely cared less. It was only because there was a collective group of us that were pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. They literally wanted to fix Okolani. They were not, our concern with Okolani was needing to get fixed with the sinkhole. We said, they are forcing our traffic to have to cross Tialani Highway, and the state said, doesn't matter, don't care. And we pushed fiercely to get it because we said, someone is going to die because you're forcing us to have to cross a 4-lane highway. Fortunately, they finally got it through, and with that, the decision to then delay Okolani's sinkhole was made because we couldn't force that amount of traffic through. I can tell you, there's no coordination until a group of us actually stepped in and said, we have a sinkhole that's getting fixed before a light getting put in. The state didn't care. They didn't know about it. There was zero coordination. So I would not just say, oh, it's a state highway and it's just going to happen, just based on that experience. And I could be wrong, but I can tell you it was a very, very treacherous discussion or tenuous discussion with some of those individuals just to get a light put in before we actually close the road to do the sinkhole.
We're paying for that stoplight.
Thank you.
We're paying for that stoplight. The reason we're paying for that stoplight is we're doing a project in McKenna, the 53-unit project in McKenna, and our pro rata share, as required by zoning, and that's the trigger, was to pay our pro rata share of widening Pialani Highway to 4 lanes. The meeting with DOT, maybe it's because of the pushing y'all did, they said, well, the first step in that is to add this traffic light, and we're paying for the traffic light. So I think the pro rata contributions are pro rata construction of to get it to 4 lanes is the way to go. This is going to stop that. This is because no one's going to step forward and build that whole highway if they don't have a project. It's just not going to occur. So, Daniel, the high-end housing won't be built, the affordable housing won't be built, and the highway won't be built. So, in answer to your question, it's a pro rata percentage, and it's not a pro rata percentage. If you really want to encourage it, make it a pro rata percentage for every unit built south of the intersection. Not just 53 and up. Make it every unit. And that way vacant lots, that way small subdivisions, that way expansions of hotels, expansions of restaurants, commercial areas. Everybody pays towards the widening. Broaden the pool, broaden the participants in the funding to make money available quicker. And there have been other highways built on this island that, I mean, you look at the upcountry road when it was expanded from 2 lanes to 3 lanes and then 4 lanes. It's just things are done very seldom do you see a road being built all at once. I can't remember the last time the county of Maui built a road. Honestly, I really can't remember the last time the county of Maui built a road. Developers build roads, and developers build roads if they know they have a project. The problem with South Maui is 670s litigation, Wailea litigation. It's just no one knows if they have a project, so why would they reach in their pocket and spend a bunch of money when there's no way to get it back?
Wayne and then Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to talk about responsibility. And I hear an individual talking about it'll never be built. I can't wait to some of you that take responsibility in selling off of that land only to have someone that lives there call for an emergency vehicle, and an emergency vehicle picks up that body, never makes it through the 4 lanes, and dies. I want to see how much responsibility you're going to have to answer to someone that blames you for it tonight. I'm done.
Mike?
Chair, if I understand the process, can I call for the question? Can I ask for a vote?
If there's a majority in favor of going to decision, we'll do that. So, I'll ask. So actually, I've been reading up on Robert's rules, and it actually says that when you need to do a vote, you're supposed to stand if you are. I mean, you could have different rules here, but the general Robert's rules are: you stand to vote yes, you stand to vote no. We've had problems in the past with remembering how many people voted, so let's just do that. So those in favor of going to decision, moving the question, please stand up. And those, are you ready to make a decision? You got it? No, we're voting on whether making a decision or not. Yeah. Okay. And those against going to decision, against going to a vote. Okay, so it looks like we're not ready for a decision yet. Okay. I'd really like to finish this before we do a break. We've been working on this for like 40 minutes now. Kyoki?
Okay, so obviously we're touching on a subject here, yeah? Some passionate ideas, passionate thoughts. I got a good idea. How about we don't build Wailea 670? And then we just concentrate on catching up on all the infrastructure that's behind now. We're not even set for the growth Maui has now. Thank you.
Okay, Tova?
I don't feel ready to go to a vote yet because I feel like there's still too much space between the ideas and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it seems everyone is in agreement. This road needs to be expanded. It's overdue. But I guess I'm looking for someone to offer something that gets us closer between this won't help, and the past hasn't helped. So if someone can find us, I mean, I don't know if that's planning department has some ideas, or if there's a combination of this where it's a unit trigger that then you're contributing to the pot to get it done. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know enough to know how to vote.
So I think we've had two suggestions. Only one is a motion. Only one's on the table right now. The other suggestion, I think, from Everett, if I understood it correctly, is that just increase the pro rata contributions of all new developments and where they are to the widening fund. Brian?
Planning department. Oh, I can't see you all that well. Do you have a general number on what it would cost to complete that portion of the highway? No problem. Do you have a general number of kind of ballpark of what it would cost to complete the highway? Okay.
40 million.
Okay, that kind of kills my idea.
You got it, Brian?
Because where I was going to go is saying, how much would it be per project for them to say, hey, it's an investment, to somewhat slightly different what you were saying, Wayne, of saying, look, I'm taking responsibility. This is what we're intending to do. Let's build the road. Let's do what's right for the community. But that seems like that could be a bit of a pricey investment without commitment. So I will shut up and ponder a little bit more, see if I come up with a different idea.
I have a suggestion. Daniel, what if we defer this? What if we defer this again and put our thinking caps on and see collectively if we can come up with something that might work? We all want to get it built. We all want to get it built. It's an important road. But I agree with the chair. We haven't gotten the answer to get it built yet.
Someone needs to make it doesn't have to be Daniel. Someone needs to make a motion to table the topic, and then we can come back to it. It can be anyone. Daniel?
I just wanted to remind the committee that this was deferred from March 22nd. So you all had all this time to think about this and other things. And this is I think it's up to the body if they want to defer it, if enough people are in favor of it, deferring it. Otherwise, I'd be happy to do the vote right now.
Brian?
I'm tossing this out as an idea, not a motion yet, so just to see if it has any merit. Would it be possible for us to say that we look for the DOT to build it, and then those that have their responsibility as their projects come through then pay the DOT back, or something of that nature?
I don't think it would get built. I mean, if it were to DOT, it just wouldn't. I agree with Daniel. It's just not. It needs the community. It needs the development funding. And I think if that were to, occur, I think if any one of those three projects were to move forward, know that they could move forward without this continual litigation, then I think they would step forward and they would do a portion of it. And I think once that occurs, I think the ability to get state funding. I mean, when we did the road between near Kamalii Elementary School, that was a joint venture between the state, the federal government, and our company that paid for that. And projects like this take those type of partnerships. I think the developments, those three developments, they'll be kicking in a bunch. But it just needs to get started. Once it gets started, then I think, you look at our legislative power right now, having the vice chair of Ways and Means and him the chair of the Finance Committee, we're in the best position we've been in 25 years in the legislature. But so I think there are financing options available, but I think the pro rata is the way to get the ball moving, just like it got the traffic light moving.
Brian, and then Daniel.
So another idea, just trying to throw some stuff out to see if anything sticks. What if, to your point, we didn't necessarily build 4 lanes, we built 3 lanes, or a third lane, and through the pro rata, we would look to the developers to help fund that so that at least it's not the full chunk, but we at least get something going. So it's A, helping the community today, but it's setting the stage that it helps position things for the better future, but it's not the whole thing at once. I don't know if that makes any sense. And Danny, I don't know if that's even something you would be open to amending to, but it's more of a question, is that something that you think would even be feasible?
I think that's what we have right now. I mean, the reason it's not 4 lanes currently is, as you drive that, you look to the left and right, and you see that rock, and that rock is, I mean, it's just expensive to remove, and that's why they didn't do it back in the day. But I think the pro rata funding will work. Those projects just need to get moving, and once those projects get moving, the money comes in. But if the suggestion is for those projects to do it up front without knowing if they have any source of revenue, no one would do that. I mean, no one would put up the money not knowing if they're ever going to get it back. And while those projects are tied up in litigation, Wailea would love to pay their pro rata share of that road, as would 670 of the other projects. But as long as they're tied up in litigation, there's no money available to do it.
So we have a motion on the table. We can't really be discussing other proposals until we decide what to do with that one. And we decided not to decide what to do with that one. We got to decide something. Daniel?
So maybe Everett was at the 2010 community meeting at the Key Elementary cafeteria when HDOT talked about the widening of Pi'ilani Highway with Honuaula, Wailea 670. And they said, HDOT said that they are not going to, at that time, that they were not going to pay for the widening of Pi'ilani Highway to 4 lanes, that they're depending on the money coming from the private sector to build it. Maybe that's changed. That was 23 years ago. And then if projects are tied up in litigation, then as Kiyoki said, maybe there should be no further development until they're ready to move. Which I mean, wait till their cases are decided one way or another, and then if they're ready to move, and then do the improvements, then they'll be motivated to widen the highway. So if they're tied up now and they can't build it, then maybe X should be 0.
Everett, we really need to get to a decision here, move beyond this one.
Daniel, I agree with you. That's what the guy said. Truth of the matter is, he doesn't make the decision. And that's why we have line item budgeting. That's why we have, all it takes is the finance chair or the vice chair of the Ways and Means to put it in the budget. And if the money's there, they have no choice. They build it. They're told to build it. I think the pro rata, and I think it's just like we've talked about other items on this in the community plan where we need to reach out to federal government or reach out to state or our county, and I think this is one of those projects. To me, coming into the CPAC, the most important. My most important infrastructure item was the North-South Collector Road. It's still the North-South Collector Road, but this is equally, this is an important one. I think the 3 big infrastructure improvements for South Maui, North-South Collector Road, the Malco Road, and the widening of Pialani Highway to 4 lanes.
Yeah, if I respond very quickly. In the current plan, the 3 transportation priorities were first, the collector roads between South Kihei Road and Pialani Highway. The second one was completion of the north-south collector road, and the third one was widening of Pialani from Mukulele all the way to Waileike. So the first one has been accomplished, the connector roads. The north-south collector road is the current priority, and that would leave the widening of Pialani Highway as the second priority based upon our current transportation plan and our current community plan. And it's true, it can be a line item in a budget committee, but it took 25 years, I don't know how many, 10, 15, 20 years to get that line item to finance the high school, the high school that's being built right now. How long is it going to take to finance the widening of Pialani Highway? It's all political will.
Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, this is classic. You talk about Everett, how powerful the legislature is. Yet nobody wants to stand up and be responsible for developing Makena, Wailea. No developer wants to pay for the 4 lanes, Mr. Chairman. You know what? Stick it to the people of Hawaii. Let us, the highest tax people, pay for this improvement and let all these people living at Wailea, Makena, sit back in their chairs and drinking martinis and watch us pay for the 4 lanes. This is classic developer mentality. Stick it to the people of Hawaii. You guys pay for it. You guys want it.
Okay, we need to either go to a decision on the motion or go to a decision to table the motion. We can't continue meeting after meeting, you know, with the same. We don't have a solution for this right now.
Well, I'll call for the question.
Okay. Those in favor of, oh, I need a second for that. Actually, do we need a second for that? No, I don't think we do. Okay. So we just need a majority. Okay, those are in favor of going to decision, please stand up. Okay. Got it? Okay, those who are against going to decision, please stand up. No. So 4 and 4, okay, so I don't know. I had a question to planning department because the Robert's rules actually say an abstention is an abstention. It's not a yes vote, but maybe county has its own version of Robert's rules where an abstention is considered a yes. Is that the case, Karen?
I don't know if the county has their own. That is what I was told when I started this process. I did also look it up, and you are correct. An abstention is technically counts as a no because it does not count towards the favor of voting yes for something.
Right.
I would just like to comment that voting on whether you're not going to vote on everything is going to make this take 4 times as long. Call the question and vote on the question, please. This is a more relaxed setting than Robert's rules, and we can do a more relaxed way of doing this. You don't have to do everything by Robert's rules. It's going to take a long time if you do that.
Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, I think we waited long enough. Who is our corporate Corporation Counsel. Who is it assigned to staff this committee? We're working on a community plan that is based on laws. What's the answer for administration? Who's our legal attorney?
Michael?
I want to know his or her name and give me their phone number.
Until about a month ago, it was Keola Whitaker, but he has since left the county and is now working for a private firm. So now it's Michael Hopper. That leaves the county incredibly short-staffed, and he is not able to come to every meeting that he is wanted at.
Point of order. Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
So all the way up to this point in time, we've been counting abstentions as yes votes. We've set a precedent for that. If we're changing it, how many motions have passed or failed as a result of the incorrect calculation of votes?
Mr. Chairman, I'm really worried about the breaking the Sunshine Law. And what Daniel says is true. We never had a count on the votes taken. I never heard anybody speak from administration or planning what the vote count was. And I think we're on the verge of breaking the Sunshine Law.
Daniel, I don't think any votes that there were no abstentions that would have changed the way something passed that I can remember. Most of what you have done has been by consensus. There were a few votes, but they were usually above 7, which is your minimum for voting. So that is the quorum. That's one more than quorum.
But I believe in our rules, in our booklet, an abstention vote is counted as a yes in our rule book.
Oh, it is.
So I looked and I didn't find that. But anyway, regardless, we can't just keep a question open forever just because we can't decide whether or not to decide. That does not make any sense. So I would ask the people who are against deciding to agree to decide so we can move on. Was that a recess? Okay, 10-minute recess, but guys, we have to get things done here. We can't just keep saying we're not going to decide, we're not going to decide. We're here to decide. That's our job. It may be difficult, but we're here to decide.
Yeah, but the road, if you're just restriping the road, you're not changing the road. Unless the road was narrower than it to start with. Yeah. Maybe that was.
Okay, guys, resuming at 7:31 p.m. So we need to go one way or the other on this 1.03C, either go to a vote or table it. Daniel?
Didn't we just have a vote, Chair?
It was a tie. It was a tie with how many abstentions? 2 abstentions, okay.
It wasn't a tie.
Okay.
Based on our rules.
So it's 6-2 then, 6-4 rather.
For voting 10-103-16.
Right, so what was the vote? 6-4.
Unless a present member is disqualified from voting pursuant to section 10-103-17 herein, the member's silence or refusal to vote shall be recorded as an affirmative vote.
Right, so we have voted to move the question. To move the question. So those in favor, please stand. Those in favor of Daniel's motion, please stand.
We're voting on the motion? On the screen?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Those in favor of the motion, please stand. Got it? And those against, please stand. And those abstaining? Kyoki? So what's the vote?
Actually, we could start doing roll call, whereas that helps easier because some people are hiding.
Okay, so that we didn't get the vote, so we're going to do it by roll call. Daniel? Roll call. Daniel? Aye. Tova? Vernon? Kilkey? Abstains? Brian? Wayne? Randall? Everett? Jennifer? Mike? So what is the vote?
Yeah, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, plus an abstain 5.
5-5. Okay, so I'll break the tie with a yes. If we have adopted 1.03C. Okay, moving on. Okay, so next one I flagged is 1.08, where the text is not what we agreed on. It's kind of missing a bunch of text.
Chair? Just quick point of order.
Yes.
I think Karen had suggested that it needs to be a policy.
It can be moved to a policy. That doesn't change the language, I don't think. So 1.08, we adopted that, but what's in the list is not what we agreed on. 1.08.
Chair?
Okay, looks like it was added back. If I saw these. Okay, it's added back. Okay.
Chair, could I just ask a question on the voting?
Yes.
We have 12 voting members, and a majority would be 7 of the 12 or 6.
You're right.
Oh, there's
It should be 7. 2 that are out. So, but it is a majority of the membership, not a majority of the present.
But for our majority on votes, is it the total of all the possible votes that we could have?
Yes.
Or of the people attending?
You're right. It should be 7 because it's the majority of all the possible votes.
Right. So for us to pass a motion, it would be 7 affirmatives.
Right. So we had.
Oh, he says-
Okay, so we had 6 versus 5, so that did not carry. Okay, so it did not carry. Okay. The next one we had flagged is 1.13, which Daniel had initially proposed, but then deferred on March 29th. So is there a motion for this, moved by Everett, is there a second?
Oh. Okay, I'll second it. And then I'd
Second
like
by
to add a
Jennifer.
friendly amendment. Can we implement, or can we add the word plan, as David mentioned? So prioritize the identification, design, and plan. Some help with wording, but I'd love to add that word plan in this. How about prioritize the planning, identification, and design? Does that make sense?
Without the word implementation, the purpose of this was so that a multimodal corridor would be identified before any development went in. Just so prioritize planning, identification, design, and implementation. Yeah, planning.
You're the English major. Make it work. I love the word plan. Do you agree, Everett?
Plan is kind of superfluous if you're both designing and implementing it. So planning is kind of redundant if you're both designing and implementing it. Where's the plan come in? So that was a suggestion from Jennifer. So the question is if Everett accepts that as a friendly amendment. That's a weakening if we're just going to be planning it rather than implementing it. I think the goal was to actually implement it, get something done. So would we rather just plan it, or would we rather actually implement it?
Okay, I agree with you, Rob. Sorry, we'll stick to that. That's fine.
Okay, so are you seconding? Okay, okay. Discussion? Daniel?
You know, I'm sensitive to what Cody was concerned about last week, and the intent is not to open up more development. The intent is to provide a second way out of South Maui. So if anybody has suggestions to this that could help address that, I would look forward to approving a friendly amendment.
So I don't have any suggestions for amending the text, but I just want to point out that we need this road. It's not like some people were thinking last time that, oh, we're talking about building a brand new road. That means more development. We've built the development already, and without building the road. And this is a road that was envisioned. Actually, the last CPAC, the 1998 CPAC, actually finished its work in 1992. So it's like 31 years ago. And at that time already, they saw the need for this road. We got the development, we did not get the road. So I'm not in favor of building roads in order to have more development, but I think we made the mistake of having the development without the road. We need the road. Vernon?
So that Lipoa high-tech park, they created a future project, called Lipoa, which going to include more housing and Space Force. And it's going to go much higher than any plans that we've seen at CPAC. So the trick is, there's look like 3 views we had at highways, you know, potential highways, Mauka. There's 3 views of lanes that we can choose from. We're going to have to have on road Mauka anyway because of what happening below Piilani Highway. But we have to be strategically correct or proper on where we put that road. I don't think we like go too high, but that future project for Lipoa, it's called Lipoa, but it's all based around Space Force. And it's going to go much, much higher than any plan that we've seen, which is going to push a highway above that project if that's what we're looking at. But I think we all like try to have them more down, more low, closer to Piilani or true development or the high school that we have already. So we just got to kind of just be careful. But we do need one highway. It's inevitable anyway.
Daniel?
So I'm the one who made this motion the last time we met and then deferred it or whatever you want to call it. And could have passed very easily at our last meeting. And then other committee members expressed some concerns like Cody. And then after he spoke, a few others spoke. And Vernon. This has weighed on me all week long about building Mauka Highway. Yes, it was in the earlier plan. And yes, we're behind on infrastructure and we're catching up. But whose fault is that, you know? It's a catch-up game. I'm just worried about unintended consequences of building a highway, Mauka Piilani Highway, in the urban growth boundary. And for me, the reason I was supporting it, because like Vernon, I just want to give us another way to get in and out. Not necessarily, and as Everett has expressed, not for development. But if you build it, they will come. It's going to be a natural consequence of putting a highway up there. It's going to happen. So, and then I read the testimony submitted by Albert, where he just suggests delay until after preferred population for South Maui has been chosen and resultant land use needs have been recalculated. So that's speaking to growth. I'm not speaking to growth, I'm speaking to an egress and ingress, but it's gonna cause growth. It's going to happen if you build it. So for me, I'm probably not going to support the motion because I think this is a really big decision, probably one of the bigger decisions we're going to make as a committee, supporting this road. And I think we need all the information we can gather, and which is going to be provided in future meetings. I say we wait. We get all the information we need to make the most prudent and wise choice and not make it now. I don't think we're ready to make it now until we hear everything we need to know to make a good decision. I don't feel like I'm ready to make a good decision. So I prefer to delay this until later, until we get the preferred population and other information from developers who are going to meet with us and talk about their projects. I want to hear it all before I make this major decision that's going to impact people's lives, and we think for the better. But you know, there's always unintended consequences. So I don't feel I can make the decision like some of you didn't feel like you could make the decision about the widening of Piilani Highway because you just didn't feel comfortable doing it. I feel this way about this item, so I'm not going to support it. I'm going to hopefully we can come back to this after we get all the information we need to make the best decision.
So I don't think there's any proposal for highway anywhere. There's no there's like, you know, as you've seen in the proposal from what Lucian wrote, what I wrote, what MRTP is proposing, what Haleakala and Honolulu Ranch are proposing. It's a road. It's like a north-south collector road. Vernon?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Daniel, because the mindset is we need one option to get in and out, because it's just we need that. But then there's that invitation, yeah. So last week I got to visit the whole day on that high-tech park and their plans. So I invited them to, you know, contact you so that they can come and introduce their plans so that we can see. So what Albert is suggesting is, you know, we like know what really going to happen, Mauka, and then because we got to know where we like put the road. And then at the same time, we also can put the correct language when we go into land use and zoning, so we can have some kind of control on what happens at Mauka. That's what I'm thinking, but I agree with Daniel.
Okay, again, we should move to one way or the other here, either go to a vote or table. We have a motion on the floor. Move to vote. Okay, question has been moved. We really need to vote about that. Any objections to going to a vote? Okay. Those in favor of the motion, please stand. Five. Okay. Thank you. And those voting against? Yeah, those abstaining? Okay.
Randall, are you abstain? Yes, no? Yes, okay. Yes, okay.
Wayne, how did you vote on this, Wayne? No, okay.
I got 6-3 in favor of the motion passing with Rob abstaining, which would count as a yes 7-3. Well, 8-3 then.
8-3, okay.
Who else had abstained?
Okay.
He has to abstain.
Then it's 7-3 in favor of the motion passing.
Okay. Okay. So motion passes. the next one I flagged was 2.2.21, but it's really not an objection to the text. It's just that it kind of overlaps with a couple other actions, but not all.
Chair, oh, sorry. Are we still on the? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. 2.2.21.
Oh, we're on the next section.
Was 1F15 flagged? Nope, it was not.
Before we move to the next section, I wanted to revisit 1.03. Before we went to the next goal, 1.03 has to do with the north-south collector road.
Okay.
So, based on public testimony, I would like to make a motion to insert a sentence before "this is the highest priority." There's the last sentence. This is high. Okay, insert the sentence. Consideration should be given to rerouting sections of the north-south collector road where original right-of-ways has not been protected and cannot be utilized. Consideration should be given to rerouting sections of the north-south collector
Second.
road where original right-of-ways has not been protected and cannot be utilized. That is my motion.
Okay, second by Everett. I just want to point out that there's one section that can't be done, and there's no way to reroute that. The only way to get past there is to tear down houses like the Kalama Heights Senior Housing Center. I mean, you can't route people up on Kanani Road. There's four speed bumps there, and you can't widen that road.
You can't follow the original planned route, but the rerouting means you change the route.
Right, but there are houses in the way anywhere you go there.
Not on Kanakanui.
Yes, but there's four speed bumps there already. That's not a place where
Well, I'm recommending considering this option. I mean, maybe we don't see it, but maybe there is an option for rerouting. That's all I'm saying. And it was in the submitted submitted testimony we got today. So I kind of like it. That's my motion.
Okay, discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted. Okay, so I'll just, and if we're not going to go by ones which have been flagged, I guess should we go through each and every action, each and every policy? Okay.
Can I suggest members just ask if goal 1, if you have any comments on the actions, and then go through it that way instead of going through each action and each policy?
Okay, so goal 1 actions, any additional actions to review? Goal 2 policies, any policies to review? So like I said, I flagged a couple of items there, but I don't think they're serious. One, I flagged a number of things which are really just typos and grammar issues, which can be fixed. They don't really need discussion here. 2.2.1 overlaps with 2.2.15 and 2.2.18. 2.2.24 just has a typo. 2.2.27, I just wanted to point out that it's missing in the list that we got, and I couldn't find in the notes if we decided to skip that or if it was just forgotten. 2.2.27. This was one about outdoor lighting. I think we discussed it, but I don't have any record of it being rejected.
Daniel had made the motion to remove it because he was afraid it would conflict with the lighting ordinance.
Okay.
That is a minimum lighting. That's all it's for.
Okay. The next one is 2.2.28, which is was deferred because of considerations around prime ag land. So I provided a map which shows the prime ag land in South Maui. And in Kihei Wailea Makana, the prime ag land is from Ka'onaulu to about Haliku'ai, between South Kihei Road and the highway. Also the neighborhood south of Uapa Road, and then the Weinberg property, which is the area north of Uapa Road. So all that is really built, all that is built except for the Weinberg property. So if we say no development on prime ag land, it means we can't build, or the Weinberg property can't be built. That's what it means. In Ma'alaya, almost the entire developed area is prime ag land, including the triangle. So if we say no development on prime ag land, it means no development in Ma'alaya, the developed land. In central Maui, it's the area north of the racetrack and the area around the industrial area north of Airport Village. Now, if you look at these things, they're pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous to call these prime ag land. Absolutely. I mean, looking at land which is developed. There is another designation which is Class A land. That was defined by the LSB, the Land Study Bureau. And the only Class A land in South Maui is around the industrial area, which is inside of the urban growth boundary. And there's no proposal to change that from agricultural. So I don't see this as an issue at all. Daniel?
Yeah, I'm the one that brought this up. And so the reason why I brought it up, and thank you, Rob, for all the maps, is because I didn't want to lose any opportunities for urban agriculture, as they have urban agriculture in other places in the country. So if you have places to do that, you can do it. And for those who remember Kihei in the 1960s, there was a lot of farming going on in Kihei in the 1960s on land that's maybe not prime agricultural land. Thank you.
So will someone make a motion on 2.2.28? If not, then we'll move on. Okay. Uh, 2.3.32, I think it's just a typo. Ensure that new developments.
Are you on actions or policies for 2.3, or are you on actions for for goal 2?
These are policies for goal 2, 2.2. 2.2.32. But anyway, I think that's just a typo. Probably not worth spending time on. Goal 2, actions. So I did flag 2.03, and I just wanted to explain that. If we say we should do something like something else as an example, then you're basically saying that or anything similar or can happen. In other words, you're saying just that particular action is not that important. So if we feel that the Waipuilani Beach Reserve should be acquired, we should say that. We shouldn't just say acquire things like the Waipuilani Beach Reserve. We should say something like including the Waipuilani Beach Reserve.
Chair?
Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to add that language.
Second.
Second by Everett. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, moving on. I flagged, the new one. Again, I think this is just a typo. The one that comes after 2.07 is restore public perpendicular nodal access. It should probably be to the shoreline, but not worth spending time on. The new one starts with encourage the creation of a county policy. And again, this is another thing where if we want them to do it, we should just say, do it. In other words, yeah.
Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to add that language to new. Take out encourage and add the create a county policy to permit single-family dwellings to be converted into duplex units.
Second.
Second by Everett. Discussion? Brian?
Chair, more of a question for the committee. Conceptually, I support the concept, but does that potentially further promote the challenges we have with short-term rentals? Or let me rephrase it. How can we build in parameters to make sure that it doesn't become short-term rentals? Because I don't believe that that's obviously the intent.
I didn't quite get that. Could you say that a little louder?
That, again, I believe conceptually in the action. I'm asking the question on how do we prevent or ensure that that doesn't become short-term rentals by creating it into a duplex? Because to me, that immediately economically, someone's going to say, I'm going to take my home, I'm going to split it into two, rent out half, and the other. And I use that we have ohanas right now in Wailea that they're not technically ohanas because there's just a room that's downstairs of units of a single family home. They've created separate entrances and they're renting them out as short-term rentals. But they're claiming it's an ohana. So I raise it as a how do we build protections that we don't exasperate a challenge that we already have of short-term rentals.
I believe that short-term rentals are governed by zoning. So regardless of the structure of the house, if it's in a zone which is not where it does not allow short-term rentals, then
I can tell you that doesn't preclude people from doing it.
Doesn't include.
It does not preclude anyone from stopping doing it.
Illegally, you mean?
Yeah, I think it's illegal to. If they do it, it's illegal.
Regardless of the structure of the house. Bernard?
I can tell you it's happening, guys.
Yeah, we don't know if zoning doing their job though. The only way they're gonna find out if we say something, yeah, or somebody say something. So although it's in zoning, I think it's like many other things that it's until somebody addresses it.
Daniel?
I think the idea is to provide more housing. And I hear what Brian is saying, you know, the unintended consequences, more, you know, short-term rentals. I don't know, do you want to suggest language in there? Or?
You love doing that to me, don't you? Give me a minute to think. Because I don't know the answer. I don't want us to create a consequence that we're, for the right reason of what we're intending to do, but then creating a completely different issue.
I think the solution is just to enforce the zoning rather than, because regardless of what the house looks like.
The county can't handle it today.
But does this make it worse?
This could make it worse. I'm not saying it, again, I fully support the idea, so I'm just making sure that we're not creating a worse situation for us. But I can tell you the county right now is not able to manage the number of short-term rentals that are issues out there. And to Vernon's point, you have to make a case, you have to submit it to the county has to have a resource. It's a complicated process. Well, it's a slow process.
I would suggest a separate action for that to increase the enforcement of short-term rental zoning in that case. I don't think it's related to this issue. But anyway, we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Randall?
Chair, I just had a question. Does this trump the, well, I shouldn't use that word, but if someone has a unit that their CC&Rs and the association rules say you can't make a duplex out of your single family, are we trumping that, that's saying, oh, you can do that now?
No, the CC&Rs would rule.
Prioritize it.
Yep.
Any objections to this motion? Okay, and we've adopted the change. Next one I flagged is 2.13, and that was, it's just that it says native and endemic trees, but endemic trees are native. That's part of the definition of endemic. So,
I move that we strike endemic and just leave native.
Second by somebody. Second by Jennifer. Discussion? Any objections? Daniel? No. Okay.
I have one item before you move out.
Okay.
2.05. Explore the feasibility of providing overnight campsites within the region with restroom facilities, and maybe add the sentence, such as the county-owned land by the police station. As one possibility.
I second.
Discussion? Any objections? We have added that text to 2.05. Anything else on goal 2 actions?
Chair. Sorry.
Yes, Brian.
I was taking notes for the Airbnb thing when you did 2.13. Can I make a motion to just add, develop, and implement a tree canopy plan?
Is there a second? Second by Jennifer. Discussion? Any objections?
Sorry, I don't know what I'm voting on yet.
2.13, develop and implement a tree canopy plan.
Okay, now I see it. Okay.
Any objections? Okay, fine, we've added that. Anything else on goal 2 actions? Goal 3 policies. So we had some initial text with 4 bullets, and then we had Council Hopper, I think, explain why C and D were not a good idea. So did we ever decide on A and B? Or do we need to actually adopt them? This is 2.3.2. 2.3.2. This is about redevelopment and new developments within the Slerexa. So did we adopt those two, A and B, or were they just deferred? They were not, okay, because of discussion with the council. Okay, so does someone want to make a motion for 2.3.2 with A and B? Moved by Everett. Is there a second? Second by Tova. Discussion? Any objections? Fine, we have adopted that. A and B. Mike had flagged 2.3.3.
Yeah, I just wanted us to consider that wording within the Slerexa. I think that, at least my understanding is, every time we get a new report, the condition is worse. Whatever we thought sea level rise was 5 years ago, now it's worse than that. So if instead of saying within, maybe say adjacent to or something like that. That was my reason for suggesting to review it. Thank you.
Is there a second? Okay, moving on.
Chair,
Yes.
Chair, I had one item on the same policy. It reads, the first phrase reads, protect the public access to an ecological function of wetlands. That doesn't make sense. Is the meaning protect the public access to wetlands and protect ecological functions of wetlands, etc.? Is that the way it's supposed to read? Can we correct that? Protect the public access to wetlands? Protect public access to wetlands, shorelines. No, I think it was protect the public access to wetlands and protect shorelines, beaches, dunes, and ecological functions. I think we're protecting public access to wetlands and protecting shorelines, beaches, and dunes, and ecological function of wetlands, shoreline. I think that's what it's trying to say, and correct me if anybody thinks that's not what it's saying. It's supposed to say protect public access to wetlands and protect ecological after wetlands there's and, then can you put protect between and ecological? You're right there, no, where your cursor is. Yeah, protect the public access to wetlands and protect ecological function of wetlands, shorelines, beaches, and dunes by preserving. So I think that's what it's trying to say.
So you don't want public access to shorelines, beaches, and dunes?
Is that what you get when you read it?
That's what you said before you made this change.
Before the change, it reads, protect the public access to an ecological function of wetlands. So it's protecting public access to what?
Wetlands, shorelines, beaches, and dunes.
Chair. It's two verbs with four direct objects. So
that's a problem.
Not in English.
Okay.
So suggestion, Karen, don't start typing though, but just try listen to this, okay? So, I mean, I'm interpreting it as you're going to protect and then all these things. So if you're protecting access, if you omit the to and just comma everything. So protect the public access, comma, ecological function of wetlands, comma, shorelines, comma, so on and so forth. See what I mean? Protect the public access, comma, ecological function of wetlands, comma, shorelines, beaches, dunes. Does that make sense? Because access is kind of implying egress and ingress. So I think the word to can be omitted if that's going. You see what I'm saying, Daniel? Protect the public access, comma, omit the word to, the word and just comma all the way down.
The original intent was actually to support public access.
See where I'm going with this?
Sorry, the original policy it works without the word public, right? So if you go back to the original, protect the access to and ecological function of wetlands, shoreline, beaches. Is that missing the point? We need the word public in there?
I think the public needs access, yes.
Yeah.
So access in general is not enough. We need that word
I think
public.
by mentioning public, you.
But you're on to something, Kyoki.
Yeah.
Because the original policy works.
Yeah.
Karen, English major.
I think we all agree on the intent. It's just the language.
Yeah, the original text is intended to do two things: provide public access, but also protect them. That was the purpose, and not just one thing, but all those things. There's no motion.
I'd like to make a motion to keep the wording, the original wording. Protect the public access to and ecological function of wetlands, shorelines, beaches, and so on.
We actually don't need a motion because we already decided on this in the past.
If that makes sense to you, that's fine.
Okay.
If you get what its meaning.
Nope. Okay, anything more with, 2.3.7, I just had a question mark there. If this should be worded stronger, avoid development or redevelopment within special flood hazard areas. If we should just say no development.
You can't really prohibit development. If people have development rights, they have development rights. But you can avoid it. You can prohibit low-income housing, but you can't just prohibit development in general.
Okay. I flagged 2.3.11.
Chair,
yes.
Before we move, we're added by CPAC below the one we just discussed, below 2.3.8. Added by CPAC, sand should not be moved between Moku without consulting the community. Maybe we discussed this before and I missed it, but who's the community? What's the definition? Sand should not be moved between Moku without consulting the community. What does that mean?
We did have a long discussion about that, but Vernon, you want to recap?
Okay, sorry, Vernon.
Daniel's community. Since you talked the
Very
most
small
tonight,
community.
since you was the most active tonight. No, I was thinking KCA, South Maui, was that council? Maybe Ahamoko or Native Hawaiian organizations. It's pretty much me.
I think that's what we said
but
last time.
I don't want to say, because all the fingers point this way, right? But it's just a simple practice of managing resource. I'll just throw this out there, but administration asks, what are we going to do with the dirt at Waikoa Bridge? The Janet Weinberg Foundation. Naturally, I said, yeah, we take that back where it came from in that same corridor. But give that dirt to farmers who could use it, but not put it up Mauka where it's going to come back down. The second option was give it to Mahipono nearby. But first and second option, I still feel it needs to be vetted with Department of Health, because we don't know if the soil is good or not. So it's that kind of management that, community can be involved in how we manage our resources instead of, I know projects, they're going to take sand, it's a commodity, and it's going to go from this moku to another moku. Of course, we don't want sand from Maui Lani coming here and filling in the gaps along South Kihei Road on the shoulders. So we utilize what we have in our moku. So it's that mentality of practice that, check with our community when we dealing with our resources. In this case, is the sand. I'm not sure how I still would word that, but
Mike?
Yeah, I would just add for KCA, the only time we spoke up and got involved in it was when the state contracted someone to dredge the boat harbor. And we questioned what were they going to do with the sand that they were dredging. And the state said, well, it's up to the guy that contracted what to do with it. And we objected to that. We said, well, that doesn't seem right. You're paying somebody to do it, now you're giving them the resource that they're doing. So whatever the reason was, the state then did back off and say, okay, it has to be kept in the same area is what they used, moku, that it was dredged from, because apparently they were going to sell it to somebody in a different part of the island, and they ended up just putting the sand in, I believe it was Kamaoli 1, I'm pretty sure it was, to be used there. So that was the only time that I can recall that KCA commented on it. Not that we have say on it, but we thought that was a reasonable position to take. Thank you.
And then there's that project on the road in front Maui Coast. They're doing improvement. So the community reached out to me. They always say somebody taking the sand, right? That's how it comes through. But I go check. And because of my relationships with a lot of these projects, it's not even an issue. I'm there. Hey, Vern, we're going to keep the sand in that area. We're not moving it. So that whatever they dug up from the roadway, it was put on the side by ABC store. And then it goes back where the hole was dug up. So it's that kind of management, because somebody going to reverse over there and take them someplace else, and I don't know, maybe $350 a load, I don't know. But that's not how we manage our resources, especially this side of South Maui. It was sustainable, edible, plenty of resources. That all gone, But at least we can try and participate, do the best we can with what we have left. That's all.
So by Robert's rules, we're not supposed to be discussing without a motion. So do you have a motion, Daniel?
Yeah, my motion is to identify the community, to give it some direction. could put in Vernon Kalani Kao, I'd be fine with that, or... My motion is to we should identify who the community is, whether it's Ahumoku or, I don't know. That's my motion.
I'll second it. And I have a question for Vernon. Are you on a committee? Like, can we put your committee name there?
No, no more. We need more Vernons.
100%.
No, in a good way.
No, for sure. Is there a department
so
in the I don't know, in the county that you're affiliated with? Something to quantify it. I agree 100%. We need to quantify. You go and put that out there in the community, nothing will ever get done.
Shucks. Whether I'm in the county or not, we're in a better place. We just got to. I mean, yeah, we can put my name, and and then somebody else got to. I don't know how you direct that somewhere else, but that's. I mean, we can Native Hawaiian Organization. I like KCA. You know.
Should we put KCA?
I mean, if they want, you know, but it cannot just be me, kind of thing.
Right.
But you know, this is a good thing we're talking about because it's going to set precedents in other mokus, you know. But also have, you know, my radar on even contractors, you know, development, that why they need those resources, because you got to do what you got to do to make roadways or projects, but it's something that it should include the community. You know, what you're using that resource for. That's why I like the precedents that that I set with a 10-year permit that I have in South Maui shorelines. That sand cannot just be moved. The only way I'm going to find out is somebody going to take a picture and text them to me. That's the only way, but I cannot carry that load. I just cannot, you know, because where I stay now, it's not going to happen as quick, but Kavika.
Brian?
So, Daniel, I completely support, and Jennifer, I think we need to define community. It's kind of what I've been saying all along. It was one of the things I wanted to bring up when it got to the right discussion point, is we need more Vernons. And if, God forbid, something happens to you, putting your name in here isn't something that's actionable at that point. So I would propose to Daniel that what you were saying is we need a committee directed to someone. I would personally say we should stay away from any associations. Every association has their own personal desires, interests, protection for their specific piece of a community. It may not be the same for a different community, because Maulaya might be very different than something that's down for South Kihei versus McKenna. So I would, personally, that's just my opinion, I would stay away from an association, because also those associations you're paying fees into as an owner, and some associations are much larger than others, so it's not necessarily a fair balance to say one association has more power over another from influencing.
Everett?
Vernon, how about the sustainability? Is there a sustainability division in the county?
Sustainability. There's the mayor's office of sustainability.
Yeah, it's innovation, sustainability, and houseless. It's a new, but that's where it's supposed to be. But it's not going to happen soon. But this is where this could be implemented with. We're just not there yet. But
Kavika?
For me, because this is sand and moku, that implies a cultural component here. And if we're running with a cultural component, then you guys should just add NHOs and cultural practitioners. If we're not going to add NHOs and cultural practitioners, then you guys should just remove sand and say resources. So I don't know if we're talking about sand and moku, then culturally it should be like Native Hawaiian organizations and cultural practitioners. If we're talking about resources, then we can kind of expand on who to be consulted.
That sounds good. Native Hawaiian organizations and cultural practitioners. Friendly amendment to my motion.
The funny thing is, I think we did discuss that last time and then changed it to community. So Jennifer, you okay with the that change?
Okay, I think that's it.
One last comment.
Go ahead.
As long as breeding, it doesn't mean that this closes the door on not using the sand for other things. We're going to have to use the sand. So South Kihi Road, for now, we were going to have to take the sand from these corridors to patch up, because we're not going to be able to. I don't think it's proper that we take sand from Olowalu because there's a pile of sand on the side of the road. Hey, let's bring that sand. I don't think that's proper. I only saying this because just look at this. It's not closing the door for like other projects that we gotta use that resource within our moku, if that makes sense.
Everett?
Only thing I'm concerned about with this one is if every community plan puts similar language in theirs. It's, we use water from Central Maui. And if there's a highway project here and there's not sand available, and there's sand available in Central that's required to complete that project, I just worry that we're creating boundaries and building walls in what is relatively a small island. I've always been bothered by the upcountry community plan where water resources aren't supposed to leave upcountry, but yet upcountry residents use the beaches in South Maui. Once we start setting those rules, I don't know, I get it that we don't want sand to leave South Maui, but at the same time, we might need sand from, to finish the north-south collector road, we might need sand from somewhere else, or for utility trenches or whatever. So I'm concerned that we're creating a precedent.
Yeah, so, I think like that too. But then that's going to be on discussion with like the Native Hawaiian organization and how we're going, because it's the same like Aupua system. The Hawaiians move the boundaries, all the time, based on how the resources are changes in the environment, So the ali'i would come out and say, I think we got to move the boundary more on your side because the water going more on your side. So the Hawaiians moved the goalposts back in the day, based on resource management. So I think, along that lines anyway, I don't know how to write this even better to protect the opportunity that we might need resources from someplace else to help with the north-south collector road with agreements with the other Hawaiian organizations and community. So I can see me establishing that, and we can change moku to like Kulakai or South Maui, because we're only talking about, I just concerned about South Maui right now, but I know what's going to happen once this get implemented. So just wanted you to hear that.
Everett?
Another example is aggregate. Most of the aggregate comes from Central Maui, to build the roadways. The asphalt, most of it comes from, Central Maui, or just.
The sand relates mainly to our shorelines and in our corridors. So we can, I don't know, Daniel, what do you think? We can just make it South Maui, or because we're just talking about the sand in Kulakai or South Maui. So we can change that. Karen? Or within South Maui, yeah. And anyone see anything else that can improve, yeah.
I think you have to add shoreline sand, because there's sand everywhere. Certain areas, and you'd start developing and you start finding sand. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? I think shoreline sand, you're referring to shoreline sand. It's very different than the sand that's east of South Kihei Road.
So here,
hill.
The Laie wetland. The Laie wetland that's being cared for behind the Salvation Army and Lipoa Street. There were soil samples taken. The sand samples that they found there, along with a conch shell, was dated 600 years ago. So the sand goes all the way pretty high. The Welakahau project, the proposed village project that we intervened, up where that electric substation is, right below the South Maui Park is, that sand over there goes all the way to Waihe'e. It's the same sand, because that's a sand dune complex that goes all the way to Waihe'e, Maui Lani, through Lipoa. So where Lipoa Street is at, the sand at Lipoa is the same sand from Waihe'e, that sand dune complex. And it goes past Welakahau more towards Kanani Road. That sand is the same type of sand that you'll find in Maui Lani, Waihe'e. So I get what you're saying, but we gotta, that would mean all our sand in South Maui, yeah. So if this is okay, we can keep it like that. If not, we can massage a little bit, but Daniel, you okay with that? Okay.
Chair.
Okay.
Just to kind of, to Everett's point, and just to kind of reiterate and build on that, I think it's good to remember too, in Hawaiian culture and in local culture, because it's based off of Hawaiiana, you're not really necessarily saying you cannot do this. It's just like a protocol we always grew up with. You ask before you take. So just the process of consulting can, end up the end result being approval of this. It's like a protocol, yeah. That's just my now. Thank you.
Can we go to decision on this one? Any further discussion? Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, if you follow the areas sand mining and where, may I remind you, as the development of the existing Ritz-Carlton happened, if it wasn't for Uncle Leslie Kulaloyo, that area was going to be the site of the existing Ritz-Carlton. Thank God to Colin Cameron, we got to him to move the Ritz-Carlton more Mauka. And under the direction of Uncle Les, we recovered more than 1,300 burials. Now we go back to history, and you look at the sand mining that happened in Maui under Clarapana, and the amount of bodies that they recovered during the sand mining operation. And may I remind you people that pay homage to the Grand Wailea that wants to build more $1 million development. And many Hawaiian organizations are against that development because they said the iwi kupuna exists there. And so we desecrate Maui for development. And we see our sand being mined above young brother barges that go to the new rail projects in Honolulu to build the rail. Then we call, Mr. Chairman, you call the sea experts on sea level rise. And these experts are scientists that study the ocean. And they tell us, as is happening in West Side or Honolulu, for that matter, because of the sea level rise, all the sand is going to the ocean. And they got a project, sand project, that they want to dredge the water and bring it to Honokawai. From what I understand, anytime the county wants to move sand from the South Maui, and you're right, Vernon, that sand has got to stay in that area. You cannot take that sand and move it to Pukalani, wherever it wants to move it. It's got to stay in the area. There's a law. And you can't break it. Ask any county agency, Public Works, where they are allowed to move the sand. If it blows on across Salt Sea Road, they got to keep it in that area. Thank you.
So as it's written there, it's very different, because now it's saying needs permission to move it within South Maui, but they're allowed to move it outside of South Maui. I thought that was just the opposite of the original intention.
So English I wasn't good at, for real. So yeah, you guys can help me out, because I don't like the sand. We like keep the sand in South Maui and not go out. Beyond? Or
moved out.
Or
sand should not be moved.
Out of,
yeah. The South Maui district?
District?
Where is it? Sand should not be moved outside the South Maui district without consulting with Native Hawaiian organizations and cultural practitioners. The operative word is consulting. Sand should not be moved out of the South Maui district. Okay, I'm good with that.
Jennifer?
I'd like to say and or if we're going to keep the Native Hawaiian organizations outside of the county sustainability department, then I want to say and or cultural practitioners.
So the county sustainability office is not a Native Hawaiian organization?
I know. I was referring to one or the other, but I think we're leaning towards this, right, Vernon? We're leaning towards the cultural practitioners and not the county.
I never saw the county. It was just cultural practitioners.
We were just chatting about it, and then this popped up on the board, and I'm now bringing the county back because you had asked about the sustainability. Somebody did. I'm just wondering what is the most effective avenue, going through the county and their resources because they have resources, or these other community organizations? You can weigh in, you know best.
Yeah, I'll just leave it like that, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objections? Brian?
Not objecting. Do we want to state, and Vernon, correct me if this is not accurate, but we're saying Native Hawaiian organizations and cultural practitioners, do we want to say it's within our community, or can it be anybody on the island?
Yeah, that's a good one. Because not everybody share the same. So we just worry about our district, and if we can put that in there, that we're just looking for consultation from these organizations within our district.
Friendly amendment, okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Sorry, that was a friendly amendment.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, we have adopted the sand movement action, which does not have a number yet.
Can you just read it the way it says so it's on the record?
Sand should not be moved out of the South Maui district without consulting with Native Hawaiian organizations and or, oh, did we say and or? That was, is that something that you agree with, and or?
What's the question?
And or was added. It used to
Does
say,
it make a difference?
Used to say and.
I think we should just leave it and for. Yeah. More options.
Okay, I'm going to ask again, any objections to the text as written there?
Can I just clarify for Daniel? So you're saying this gives you more options. That, the way I read this, is it means you have to go to both. If you have and or, it means you can go to one or the other, or both. So you could do a double, or you could do a single. The way this is written is you have to do both.
Yeah.
But then you never know.
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Pretty much the MO.
Okay, one more time. I'll read it. Sand should not be moved out of the South Maui district without consulting with Native Hawaiian organizations and cultural practitioners, or cultural practitioners. What does it say? Cultural practitioners from the South Maui district. Any objections? Okay, finally we have adopted that text. I flagged 2.3.11. This is the as appropriate part. And I just wanted to give an example of why as appropriate is not appropriate. If you were to say to your son, you want him to clean his room, but you don't say that. You say, clean your room as appropriate. And then you check next day and nothing was clean because he found nothing that was appropriate to clean. So I think if you want something done, you should just say do it. You should not say as appropriate. Tova.
If I'm recalling correctly, safe was specific to the microbiological activity that might be occurring in either of those waste streams, and appropriate was specific to the fact that it's currently illegal to use gray water. So if we want to be specific, I agree with you. Appropriate is not specific to that, but that was what was meant by that, was it's not legal.
But this has nothing to do with wastewater. This has to do with the South Maui Community Wildfire Protection Plan.
Oh my goodness, I'm reading your wrong red lines entirely. Yeah. I'm on your next appropriate. Your 2.3.17 appropriate. Can we just fast forward to that?
2.3.11. There are places where appropriate is appropriate.
You have this as a not appropriate, and I'm telling you why that appropriate's there. I'm sorry, it's very close to my bedtime.
Yeah, I think when you do a serious study like the South Maui Community Wildfire Protection Plan, you should follow it. You should apply it. You should not just say, where appropriate, apply it. What's the purpose otherwise?
Motion to remove as appropriate.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brian.
Can I make a friendly amendment to, instead of saying apply, use my favorite word, implement?
These are policies, not actions.
Okay, forget that.
Any
Noted.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, fine, we have made that change to move as appropriate. Yeah, the next one is 2.3.17, so that's the one you were commenting on. And so, yeah. I mean, I think when safe is the key operative word there. We just need to be aware that if we leave the loophole open to say, do this, please, but only if it's appropriate, then it's very likely it's not going to happen. Tova?
But rewinding to my earlier comments, the word appropriate here was referring to the fact that it's not legal to use gray water. So that was a way of saying it would be appropriate were it legal. But if we want to be specific and just say legal, then that closes the loophole of appropriate.
When legal and safe.
Yeah, where legal and safe is what we were getting at.
So moved.
Moved by Everett. Is there a second? Second by Brian. So require the use of grey water and recycled water in county parks and community gardens when legal and safe. Further discussion? Any objections? Okay. Yeah, 2.3.19, I think it's just a typo. The second of the added by CPACs is kind of unclear what's meant. Yeah, it's very unclear what's meant. So I have some language there which is, I think, conveys the same intent, but it's clear what's meant.
Chair, over here.
Daniel.
I'll make a motion to add that new language.
Second by Tova.
Support better utilization of R1 water via innovative techniques such as efficient distribution systems, scalping facilities, the Indians will love that, and natural earth filtering systems, and recycled water storage ponds and lagoons. That's my motion.
That was seconded by Tova. Okay. Discussion?
Chair.
Brian?
Could we have a friendly amendment to include the expansion, so it'd be support better utilization and expansion of R1, and then the balance? Reason being is that if we're just supporting better utilization, it's not expanding it, and we don't have it in all the areas. So use better utilization where it's at, but if we don't expand that, we're not going to necessarily gain any huge benefits, or the same benefits, I should say.
Daniel?
I can accept that.
So it would be support better utilization and the expansion of R1 via innovative techniques, such as the efficient distribution systems, scalping facilities, natural earth filtering systems, and recycled water storage ponds and lagoons. The expansion would go before of R1.
I don't think it's expansion of innovative technologies. It's expansion of R1 water use. That's right. And then remove that expansion. There we go. Okay. Correct, Brian? Okay. Daniel, okay? Tova? Okay.
Do you mean expansion of R1 water, or do you mean R1 infrastructure? Because R1 water is only getting expanded if you flush the toilet and then treat it, which we are doing.
That would be correct. It would be the expansion of infrastructure for the R1 as well.
Okay.
Tova?
I'm looking back, and I don't see that we have a policy about expanding the R1 infrastructure, but I really thought we did. Because they're kind of actually two different issues. I mean, one is about infrastructure and one is about innovative technologies for using what we have differently and what we could generate in the future differently. But in looking back, I'm not seeing where we had an action around that, but that seems, I thought we had like somewhere an acceleration of the R1 infrastructure to expand to new geographies, because I recall having debates about how far we should be extending that to, but did that get stuck in policy, in which case I propose that being a separate action so it doesn't get diluted. No pun intended. Me too. Thank you, Karen. I think if it's there, Brian, are you okay with just focusing on innovative technologies for this one? Okay.
So just remove that expansion of. remove the expansion of. Okay, so I think we're back to the original proposal. Any objections? Okay, and we have adopted that. Anything else on goal 3 policies? Goal 3 actions, I just flagged a misspelling of 3.08. But the next one, the new one, this is kind of important under fire hazards, because the way it's written, it sounds like we should only build a new fire station if possible, whereas the intent was to build a fire station, but to put it in North Kihei if possible. So the if possible ended up in the wrong place there. So I'm suggesting that we make it clear that we want the fire station built. It's just the location should be if possible. Let's try and finish this one off before we close for the evening. Is there a motion? Motion by Jennifer. Is there a second? Second by Daniel. Discussion? Okay, fine. We have any objections? Okay, fine. We adopt that amendment to the fire station policy. Okay, we're past 9 o'clock, and we have made it through a little over half of the policy and action reviews in 2 meetings. So, Jennifer?
Just a comment question. So will planning go through and make all these grammatical adjustments? Like, we don't need to vote on everything. You're going to go through it, like all the suggestions you made, Rob?
No, I'm skipping past all the grammatical and typographic.
Right,
Yeah.
so we don't have to spend time on it, and it'll be taken care of. Okay, good.
I just pointed them out. So I think that we should recess this meeting and devote the next meeting to finishing. So after this, we start with the land use, but we really need to finish this up first. Okay. So, okay, recessing the meeting at 9:06 p.m.